Welcome to Hot Health, a program that brings you current information on a variety of health topics that may impact your health. Today, Dr. Ruth Stanheiser has Dr. Richard Hart and Dr. Tiffany Priester here on Lifestyle TV, an LLBN network.
It's an honor, Dr. Hart, to have you here filming a hot topic with Dr. Tiffany Priester. I understand that you are a graduate of Loma Linda University Medical School.
Many years ago.
And Dr. Priester is also a graduate of Loma Linda University.
Fewer years ago.
And it's an honor to have you here to present a hot health topic. I understand this evening it's going to be on whole person care.
Absolutely. I'm glad to have you here, and I want to ask you, we're doing hot health topics. We're talking about diet, exercise, physical well-being, mental well-being, and all of those things are summarized in the idea of whole person care. And you here leading the university, what's your motto?
Well, the university's motto, as we call it now, to make man whole, actually came in 1955 at our 50th anniversary. They had a committee trying to figure out what could be a motto of Loma Linda. And one of our religion faculty, Dr. Frank Moran at that time, had just read the J.B. Phillips version of the New Testament, which had just come out. And in it was a phrase, to make man whole. And brought that forth to the committee, and they said, that's it. So that's been our motto ever since then. We've added on to that. Now we say to continue the teaching and healing ministry of Jesus Christ to make man whole. But that's what it's about. And obviously, the to make man whole embodies the entire all aspects of wholeness and health.
Absolutely. And what are you focusing on in these years to come? What part of making man whole are you helping with in the communities here?
Well, you'd be interested. We just yesterday in university board meetings passed a new policy that every student at Loma Linda, by the time they graduate from any program, will take at least one service learning course, meaning they will engage in a course that actually takes them into the community and teaches them to engage with community issues. Because my personal sense of wholeness is it's hard to just focus on wholeness on yourself. It's best to focus on wholeness as part of giving, as part of serving. And I think that's what brings meaning and purpose to life, which enables you then to actually achieve wholeness yourself.
Absolutely. So we have sessions about, what to eat and what to wear and what to drink, but serving others is actually part of whole person care. And so much of our mission in this community is focused around healing other people, but also becoming whole ourselves. Can you share with us an example that you have of people becoming whole?
I can think of many examples overall. I think that the currency kind of wholeness is finding meaning in your life. And when you find meaning, then everything else starts coming into focus. If you're chasing any particular, chasing health or chasing spirituality or chasing something other, it doesn't come together as much as when you find meaning. And there was a recent survey, I'm sure you've heard of it, Tiffany, where an outfit in this country surveyed college graduates trying to find meaning, who had meaning. And they surveyed 1 million university graduates from 1,000 different universities across the country, including our graduates. We didn't know it at the time. They asked one simple question: does your job make the world a better place? And Loma Linda graduates came out #1 in the entire country. 91% of our graduates said their job makes the world a better place. See, it's when you have that kind of meaning that then it infuses back into yourself, into the concept of wholeness.
That's fascinating, and I'm so glad to hear that the concepts that we're teaching, we're actually able to embody them and come out of the other side of training with those kind of statistics. And it's one thing to say it's our mission here to the community, but actually Loma Linda and multiple organizations here actually have made it a mission, not just in this community, but around the world. Health, being whole is not just something, for us, for our community. It's actually something global for everyone. I mean, I know we have physicians that go out across the globe. We have a physician in Lusaka trying to help people's vision return. We have physicians in Malawi trying to train African residents to reduce what we call brain drain and keep them in country. We have a physician that stayed through the Ebola crisis to provide surgeries to people who otherwise wouldn't have had them because there was such a shutdown. And that act of service actually then is helping our own health in addition to spreading our health message. Do you have any examples lately of something we've done to make other people's lives better through whole person care?
I could tell the story of one of our young cardiologists who worked in Malawi, Tiffany, and the impact that has had. But the point I want to make is that physicians in particular, but all health professionals, can easily get caught up in serving others so much that they don't retain their own wholeness. And so that's also what we're trying to do. How do you achieve the balance in life? How do you make sure you have some protected time? It's not so much not working too many hours. It's having that balance that gives you some mental relief, if you please, some sort of spiritual sanctuary of some kind. This is where, frankly, in my view, the Sabbath is so incredibly important to us, because that's an island of time that I carry no guilt in saying, okay, I got 10,000 things I've got to do, but not today. And that's so valuable, I think, to us in terms of achieving that kind of wholeness.
It is, and I can think of examples where if we take that message to other people, whether it's here in this community or whether it's actually overseas, we can actually make such an impact in people. We know that not everyone we talk to about diet and lifestyle and exercise and becoming whole will do that, but I can share some examples with you of cases where people have embodied the idea of becoming whole and it has made a difference in their life.
Yeah. Why don't you share some of those with us, Tiffany? I know you have been the only cardiologist serving a country of Malawi in Southeast Africa, actually, and I've had quite some experiences out there. I've enjoyed watching that, watching you get set up with a cardiac care unit out there and so on, and I'm sure I've encountered some patients out there that you've dealt with.
Absolutely. There is no other experience that I can liken to moving to a third world country and trying to start a cardiology clinic in an ICU. But on this segment, I want to share a few stories. One was a lady who was considerably overweight, more than 100 pounds overweight, on the usual medications that go with that, taking pills for high blood pressure, taking pills for diabetes. And one day she decided to go ahead and listen to the counsel that had been provided to her and try to lose weight. And she decided every single morning to show up at the hospital in Malawi and say, "Will anyone come running with me? I'm going to run." And she some days would have doctors, some days she'd have nurses, some days she would go alone. And she would run every morning for 1 hour. After a year, she had lost 75 pounds, and she had been able to stop her blood pressure pills and her diabetes pills. She had a job in town. She'd run around and say to everyone, "Let's go running. I'll meet you in the hospital. I'll meet you in the hospital." And that was her starting point every morning. Come to the hospital lobby and say, "Who will come with me? Who will come with me? Let's make our lives better." And it was a fantastic witness for everyone there. And sometimes our own physicians would be the ones in the morning jogging with her down the road.
Yeah. The challenge we have in developing countries, where you and I have some background, we often think of them as struggling with nutrition of a different type, malnutrition and not enough calories and protein and so on. But now the urbanization of developing countries, people moving to the city, taking up Western diets. I mean, the Kentucky Fried Chickens and the McDonald's are all over the world. As they take up our diets, drop off their exercise by getting a car, then they're running into exactly the same problems we have back here. So there's huge challenges now with lifestyle medicine issues in these countries.
Absolutely. I had a man in my office a couple of years ago, that exact story. A businessman in town had shifted to sitting at a desk all day, eating whatever's available at a fast food restaurant instead of going home for meals sometimes, or going home for meals but being rushed. Came to me because he could no longer walk to the car. It gets slower and slower and slower, and now saying, "I'm so short of breath, I get tightness in my chest, I've had a heart attack before." He had diabetes and high blood pressure and all these things, sleep apnea that go with this lifestyle. And so I took the time to go over everything with him, checked out his heart, checked out everything. We got through the stress test and everything else we needed to get to, and there was nothing new to be found. I was there to say it is 100% the choices that you're making, your lifestyle, We can get your diet under control. We can get you exercising again. Let's plan on trying to make you whole. And he came every week to see me as we worked through losing weight, getting a family member to come and talk about diet, getting the daughter who cooks to come in and meet with me and talk about nutrition, getting him to exercise, giving him a goal, 1 pound more next week, 1 pound more next week. Walk to the car, walk around the house, all those lifestyle things that we talk about that help someone. Slowly he improved until about 3 months in when he came and said, I can walk around the house 5 times. I can walk for a half an hour, and when I came to you, I couldn't even walk from the car to the facility. And those changes made such a big impact on him that he then said, I'm going to tell my brother to drive in and see you. I'm going to tell other people about you because this is important. These kind of messages, when they get stuck thinking they don't have any power and they're just sick, to come in and say, you are sick, but you can make changes, you can become more whole through doing these mental care, health care, physical exercise, drinking water, and having patient education. And it made a tremendous difference in his life.
I still get to see patients a half day a week when I'm in town, and obviously our challenge in this country now is the obesity epidemic, and how do we deal with it? They say that roughly 1/3 of Americans are obese, meaning 30% above ideal weight. Another third are overweight, meaning 20% are above ideal weight. And it's a huge issue. I mean, I was just in clinic last Thursday and had a patient say, Dr. Hart, okay, I get your point. Give me the Loma Linda diet. Tell me what to eat. And I've learned to refuse to do that because what you eat is so culturally dependent upon your own background that trying to give a person a whole new diet rarely works. So I would rather take what they do and start impacting that. Drop this off, change that, and so on, but let them stay in their cultural norms rather than trying to embark them on a whole new track. And then obviously getting them exercising. If there's some way we can get them moving somewhat, that'll make a huge difference in terms of our patients.
Absolutely. The obesity epidemic is beginning to creep out into other parts of the world. As you mentioned, as people move into cities, it's a huge problem. And nutrition and exercise are key, but exercise is by far the fastest way to sort of lose weight. I've gone over the numbers with patients before. If you reduce your diet by 500 calories a day, it still takes years to lose 50 pounds. But if you can increase your exercise to 1 hour a day, you can lose 50 pounds in 2 years.
Yeah. What I've discovered with patients is that if they drop off exercise, they lose the motivation to follow a diet. If you keep exercising, somehow the motivation, okay, I'm on a program, I'm going to go. And so almost invariably when somebody says, well, I've kind of slipped off my diet, it's because they stopped exercising first, and then the whole thing starts coming undone. So I think that is absolutely critical. I think another thing that many people don't realize, there's nothing magical about a gym. Just get out and walk around the block, do something, walk up and down your own steps, do something. I mean, I'm not real excited about home gyms because they often just gather dust in the garage. But find a buddy, go do something, but don't make it fancy. You don't need new tennis shoes. Just get out there and do something.
Absolutely. And the population that I see, sometimes they are to the point where they couldn't walk. To see someone who has a heart disease or a heart attack or heart failure, and all the things that go with them, they generally are obese, they generally have knee problems, they generally have hip problems. I actually sometimes have to start even before that and say, when you're sitting and watching the TV, pick up a cup, pick up a can of beans, pick up a water bottle, and use it like weights. You don't actually have to go out and even get a gym. You don't even have to buy special equipment to do that. And for those people who say, my shoulder hurts, I'll say, okay, take that bottle of water, that can of beans, put it in a sack and hook your ankle around the handles of the sack and just lift it up and down with your leg as you sit on the chair. And I have stories of people who have become able to walk when they really couldn't walk any farther than down the hall, just with starting with those simple exercises. Yeah. It really isn't something that you have to feel like you have to go to the gym and do.
We started off, Tiffany, you were asking about wholeness. And we drifted, as we usually do, into diet and exercise. And that is certainly part of wholeness. But let me come back, because I think it's absolutely critical, this whole issue of finding meaning in life. Yeah. And I think meaning centers around serving. And that's when you start kind of saying, okay, that's who I am. You know, one of my struggles, and I shouldn't say struggles, one of my challenges at Loma Linda is we educate the next generation of health professionals. How do we encourage them to find meaning? How do we get them to understand that service component? And I commented about requiring a class. That helps. But ultimately, it's getting people to confront human need, to get face-to-face with that. And we do that in various ways. Obviously, one of the places you've helped tremendously with is international rotations. Somehow stepping out of your cultural norms at home and into another country, you kind of peel away all the veneer and are forced to face yourself in a different way and create what we call teachable moments to kind of understand this is what life is all about. Here's a whole population of people facing issues in these ways. And so that, as a university, that's what I think is so critical, is we create those kinds of opportunities for our students to learn the meaning of life.
Absolutely. And when physicians are in touch with the meaning of life and actually doing it, and then trying to communicate that to their patients, you know, around the world, you can make a huge difference. I can remember a specific case where, you know, a lady came in with palpitations. It's a common thing for me to see in the clinic as a cardiologist. People come with palpitations. As you know, we often don't find a cause. You know, I do run a palette of tests on people, and often we're then saying we don't find anything. You know, then we're asking, how much caffeine do you drink? Do you get enough sleep? Are you anxious about something? And I had one day where I could have just stopped and said, you know, I don't find anything. It's not your heart. You know, go see your regular doctor. Go see someone else and talk about the other things it could be. And I felt prompted to say, you know, let's talk about this person as a whole. Let's ask her what else is happening. Let me delve deeper into what's going on in her life. And I asked her, when this happens, you know, what's going on? Are you worrying about family? Are you worrying about something else? What's going on? And she told me, it's always happening at night, and I have these nightmares because someone told me I was going to be raped. And I said, how is that even, you know, how is that even possible? I mean, who told you that? She said, well, a prophet came to my village, and I said, well, who's the prophet? You know, how does he know he's a prophet? And, you know, she said, well, that's a good point. I said, you're a Christian, you believe in God? And she said, yeah. And I said, you believe God is stronger than this man, this prophet? And she said, well, of course my God is stronger than this prophet. And I said, you know, get down and pray and tell God, you know, what you're feeling and what's going on. You know, has anything bad ever happened to you? And she said, no, you know, nothing bad has ever happened to me. No one comes into my house. I've never been raped. And I thought to myself, you know, let's work through this, because here she is all the way to a cardiologist thinking that she has a heart problem. And what she had was sort of anxiety based on someone telling her something bad was going to happen to her. And I helped walk her through that transition to be able to say, you know what? I have power over this. I don't have to lay awake at night worried about this. I have faith in God, and I can do my exercises and get past this particular point in my life.
One of the other issues that I wish we could do better at, and that is, how do we share wholeness and that concept across cultural boundaries? You've talked about being in Malawi, but frankly, we have a lot of cultural boundaries here in this country. A few years ago, I was down chiefing at our SAC clinic, our community clinics here in San Bernardino, and I was running late, as I usually am, had to get back to the campus for a committee, and I wanted to see one more patient, so it's back when we had charts. I pulled out the thin chart. Thin charts are usually easy problems. Fat charts are usually big problems. And all it said was rash. I said, okay, I can take care of this fast. So I walked into the room, and here was a middle-aged Hispanic lady sitting there, kind of off in the corner of the room. And I sat down and pulled up and shifted to my medical Spanish and started talking and said, you know, please let me see your rash. And she held out her hands, and I couldn't see a thing. I pulled on my glasses, looked again, still couldn't see anything. Had to move out into the middle of the room. Well, light was a little bit better and still couldn't see. And I sensed right then that something else was going on. So I kind of slowed down, said mentally, okay, I'm going to be late to this committee. Let me figure out what's happening. And her story started coming out. Her husband had just left her for a younger woman. She had 4 teenage children, no job. Over the last 6 months, she'd gained 40 pounds of weight, worrying about her future and what was going to happen. She had relatives that had developed diabetes and had a leg amputated. So now when she saw a mild rash on her hands, she was getting diabetes, and this whole future was coming on her. And you could just see that sort of a cultural misunderstanding that was happening. I happen to remember right at that time we had an exercise women for Hispanic women out in the trailer across the parking lot to help them lose weight. So like, great. Took her by the hand. We walked out across the parking lot. As we walked up to the trailer, up the ramp, you could feel the whole trailer shaking as these women were inside exercising. And I thought, great, here I'm going to introduce her to her new best friends. Opened the door, took one look at her face and knew I'd blown it, because there's no way at that point she could identify with a bunch of happy women, even though they may have been Hispanic speaking Spanish, exercising in this situation she was in. So I think the point is we need to be so sensitive to cultural understanding as we try to deal with this, particularly with nutritional sorts of stuff. You know, it's pretty tough to take away the frijoles from some diets that's their staple. So I really push our students to try to learn not just what is right in terms of exercise and diet, but what can function within another cultural setting.
Absolutely, and those are topics that are often forgotten, and unless we hold it in front of ourselves that that's something that we need to focus on, it will get lost in the mountain of things that we have to learn as we go on. You know, in the U.S. we have these blue zones, we talk about them, you know, and it's sort of been a hot topic lately to say, what are these people doing, what's different? And some of it may have to do with whole person care in the end. People have tried to examine the diets and make conclusions. Many of these people are active, and a lot of these people have spiritual connection involved. I mean, I think I can remember my very own grandma. She's turning 101 next year, living in Berrien Springs, and next month, turning 101 next month. And she embodies some of these things. I mean, she fails. She fed us macaroni and cheese when we were little. I mean, we can't all get it right every day. But she was always active. She was out in the garden, you know, for that physical piece. She was involved in her church for that spiritual piece. And she had her garden club. She loved garden club and getting together with people who have a mind like yours, where she was providing service to the community. Mm-hmm. And I think that is a huge part of this whole person care that we call it. Not just the exercise, not just the diet, not just, you know, going to church, but actually belonging to church, belonging somewhere. And then not just for yourself, where you reach out to a community of common interests. And I think when we talk about whole person care, all of those pieces have to come together. And not just other people having those pieces, but us learning to do them ourselves and us learning how to communicate that to others. Yeah,
we've just finished today, actually, the 7th International Congress on Vegetarian Nutrition here at Loma Linda. It happens every 5 years, and the current one just finished today. And we talk about the Blue Zone. We've got a lot of credit for that. A little bit misleading, frankly. The Blue Zone isn't Loma Linda. The Blue Zone is California, and we just did the research here. But it's clear to me that what brings that about is not so much a particular diet or exercise, it's a social community that has some bonding. And when you go to church, you get reinforcement of these sorts of things. We had a funny episode a few years ago in one of the grant submissions for the Adventist Health Study. One of the reviewers says, I got it figured out. You Adventists are all related. You all come from the same gene pool. And we said, no, we don't come from the same gene pool. But we've adopted a common sort of perspective on this that makes such a difference. But that perspective comes not from following some special diet. It comes from some common understanding of purpose and meaningful life. I think one of the biggest factors is the whole concept that I am a child of God, that somehow that's where I gather meaning and purpose in my life, and that's what gives a direction then that motivates me to do all the other things that are so important.
So how do you teach it, or how do you draw it out of someone else? You know, it's one thing to sort of sit and think for yourself, what is the meaning in my life? But how can we draw that out of our neighbors, our relatives? How can we go about seeing if other people are whole and helping them in that?
Yeah. Well, I'm quite convinced it doesn't come from a classroom. You know, I don't think I can stand up there and put down on the board how to do that. I think it comes from mentoring and service. And how do I put people in a setting where they are actively engaged with service? Then how do I actually help them reflect on what happened, what it means to them, the impact it's had on them? And this is where both our international and community activity is so powerful, because it's when you step into that you somehow, it grabs you and you get it.
That's right. I often tell people, what would your hobby be? And some people will say travel would be their hobby, or, you can try to inspire people to go abroad and do mission work. But some people, they can make a hobby out of something in their own community. And I think that's a way that some people can find meaning. If you ask them, what are you doing with your life? You've had a second chance, or you're feeling much better. How will you give it back? How will you pay it forward to other people? And that is through service. And so we try to get people to think, at home, think about it. What can you do to serve other people? How can you feel wholeness in your life? If you're chasing down something, if you're chasing down your own health, if you're chasing down, exercise and wellness, how can you do that in a way that includes other people, that includes the community around you? And as you find meaning in life, you will feel whole, and other people will also become more whole. We've talked on one of our other segments about finding an accountability partner. Some of these changes that you have to make in your life, the improvement in diet, the improvement in health, are much easier if you have an accountability partner to do them with. Find someone who also wants to search for those same things, and go forward with that person to encourage you.
Yeah. And Tiffany, I watch you and Daryl. You've now returned from Malawi, and yet you go back there several times a year on your own expense to continue to provide that. That's not a cardiologist. That's a whole person seeking to give, seeking to connect, seeking to make a difference in others' lives. And that's really where the value of this thing comes together, I think.
I think it does. So we encourage everyone to join us as we become whole individuals, as we try to encourage it in our friends and relatives, and as we continue in this series, as we learn more about different hot health topics. It's one way that we can be able to actually make that change, to actually move towards those goals. Otherwise, we sit and listen to a series about how to be better, and if we can't incorporate that into our lives, into our routine, it will have just been a half an hour and there will be no improvement in our lives.
Thank you. It's good to hear your stories and to talk once again. I admire what you've done and where you're going, and thank you for being part of our alumni group that helps make Loma Linda whole.
Absolutely.
We want to thank Dr. Ruth Standheiser, Dr. Richard Hart, and Dr. Tiffany Priester for taking the time to just share about health. Wholeness is more than just physical health. It includes mental, emotional, and spiritual. I hope you were just as blessed as I was to be able to hear these testimonies of transformation, not only overseas, but even here locally. We hope that you can experience a testimony of transformation as well. Keep in mind that it takes time, and we want you to leave away here not just with knowledge about health, but to be motivated to transform your lifestyle. And remember, we're doing this not just to live longer, not to just add years to your life, but truly to add life to your years. Remember, when taking care of yourself, it's so that you can serve others. What I really appreciate is that they shared that it's about having meaning in life. It reminds me of a verse that says, "The generous soul will be made rich, and he who waters will himself be watered." And so we just want to thank you for watching today. Go ahead for more information. Go to www.smartlifestyletv.com.